Okay, folks, welcome back to Hearthstone. So there's a new expansion out. I have to admit, playing Wild, I haven't really noticed much of a difference. Nevertheless, been trying to work in new cards into my Wild deck. I've actually been quite surprised how the meta really has not changed. If anything, I think I've seen like older, I'll say older, like net deck ideas and different things like that, because you can use, you know, all of the cards, so to speak, and in standard they tend to, some cards are kind of duplicates of others. There's just kind of a slight difference, so you can still, I think, so you can still use them, seems to be what they do with some cards. But nevertheless, I digress. So this is one of the kind of staple concepts for Paladin, was kind of a token deck. Of course, their hero power gives you a 1/1 recruit. They have cards that give you 1/1 recruit. It's kind of their, I don't know if I'd say archetype necessarily, but it's definitely a theme that has played heavy into it over the various expansions and what have you. And for me, I think that was probably one of my favorite deck ideas to do. So I decided to, after kind of playing around with the whole mech paladin again, to kind of remake my token deck. I call it Recruitment. Now, there's some key differences between, it's not exactly your standard kind of deck. It's a combination of kind of a token 1/1 / secrets deck. Been trying to do a lot more with secrets. A lot of, I'm noticing a lot of like net decks or a lot of kind of like common knowledge decks don't actually use a lot of secrets, or that seems to be a good way if you want to get out of that rut of losing to net decks or what have you, you know, whatever the I'll say the flavor of the month is necessarily. I don't want to say meta per se because it's Wild. You know, find a class that plays some secrets. That seems to disorient your opponent enough that you can kind of start to win some games again. So, what do we have in here? Well, the biggest difference would probably be this. Never surrender. When your opponent casts a spell, give your minions +2/+2. When I first saw this, it didn't really seem like it did a lot. It actually seemed a little bit kind of like a reverse competitive spirit in a weird way, in the way my mind was thinking about it. However, I would almost argue this is perhaps overpowered. And you'll hopefully see why I say that when we play some games. I have had people concede after this has triggered. I really like the fact that it casts with a spell. Paladins didn't have many of those. Hunter has Cat Trap, which is a really good card. And I think, let's see, Rogue doesn't. Of course, Mage has some different spells that interact with different things. But Paladin secrets are a bit weird because they're all buff cards for the most part. Paladin in general, it plays very close to the way it does actually in WoW. In many ways, depending on kind of your play style with it. I don't necessarily, which is kind of interesting because I don't necessarily like Paladin in the game itself in WoW. But it seems to be one of the classes that I've played more often in Hearthstone. So it's kind of interesting how that whole, even though they try to mirror the theme of kind of the overall class, how that works. So with Never Surrender, suddenly, you know, explosive traps no longer work. Holy Novas no longer work. You throw down Quartermasters, give a 2+2+2. I've had 3 5s on the board. You have Muster for Battle that can flood your board. You have Stand Against Darkness that can flood your board. You have early game, where is it? Lost in the Jungle. You have your hero power. I threw in a Just a card just to get the upgraded hero power to summon 2 1/1s. You have more than enough of a way to flood the board. And generally, even against classes like Mage or Rogue, Druid, what have you, they can only kill one of your recruits at a time. So chances are, if you can keep the momentum going, and I really don't have any trouble keeping the momentum going generally, because there's always going to be something on the board. I don't know that I've actually ran into a game where I've just been completely shut down early game. Because most AoEs cost a little bit more around mid-range, so more around turn 4 or 5. And by that point, you should have gained enough momentum with something. Now, I have had 1 or 2 just really bad games where my draw was just really bad, and I had more kind of, you know, higher cost cards, wasn't really drawing a lot of the lower cost cards. This deck actually has a pretty good curve on it. So, the other thing that was introduced with the new expansion was Sun Reaver's Spy. If you control a secret, gain +1/+1. This is really good early game. And for Paladin, it plays well with a lot of what the secrets do. Auto Defense Matrix works well with that. Of course, Noble Sacrifice. Never Surrender. Never Surrender, admittedly, is not good on 1 minion. Neither is Avenge, generally. And generally, this will be the only thing on the board early game. Aside from that, 2 Hydrologists discover a secret. So, you know, 2 for 2 isn't great necessarily, but you get to discover a secret. So, as I kind of did with the Hunter deck and the 1-cost card that lets you discover a secret, you kind of get to tailor your deck a little bit. Maybe you want another Never Surrenders. Maybe you want another Avenge. What have you. You get to kind of tailor your deck a little bit more to the game and to what your opponent's deck is and things like that. If you can get 2 Never Surrenders, that's almost auto-concede from your opponent, because they just cannot take out what you have. And then they're looking at a board with 3, 4, 5. I've often filled my board with like 6 recruits and then a Quartermaster, what have you. Or maybe a Warhorse Trainer. Warhorse Trainer, admittedly, is not great for what it does. It seems to die easy for being a 4 health minion. Giving 1 attack doesn't really, unless you're going face, and this is a very aggressive face deck. You can kind of clear the board. If you play control a lot, you're going to run out of recruits. You kind of have to keep enough control that you're not in danger of dying, and then go face as much as possible, basically. And with Muster for Battle, when you get a 1/4 weapon, that kind of helps with that. So it's not really an issue in a weird roundabout way. 2 Mad Scientists. If I had to take, or 1 Mad Scientist, I should say. If I had to take something out, I think it would be the Mad Scientist. It just doesn't It actually costs more than the secrets do, which Paladin is the only secret class with secrets where that is true. Even if it pulls a 2/2 out of your deck, you're kind of getting 2 cards for 1 in a way. It does pull things out of your deck though, so there is that advantage. If you draw it early game and can get it on the board, admittedly, Sunreaver Spy is probably better. This will trade if it becomes a 3/4. Yeah, I was kind of on the fence. I've played some games, and you start to kind of notice if you play a deck enough that you're like, oh, that's not really as useful as it could be. And I think Mad Scientist, normally this is a really good advantage in decks, or it at least helps get you in a better position to take advantage more of the synergy of your cards of your deck, and it just really doesn't quite work as well as I had hoped, or as it has in other decks. Another new card that they added, which I'm still admittedly kind of on the fence about, was Mysterious Blade. If you control a secret, gain 1 attack. It sounds good, so it basically becomes a 3/2, so it becomes a Fiery War Axe, but you have to have a secret out. There's very few. Sunreaver Spy, again, is better, and you're not taking damage to the face. I've mainly used this for crowd control, basically. A 3/2 will take care of most things early game. You don't see, unless you run across like a weird, I've seen a few like Warlock Giant decks where they get like something, an 8/8 out like early game. Admittedly, those are rare. I have seen a few of them. I mean, you're not going to take that out, of course, but for the most part, there's not a lot of things that you have to worry about removing. It's basically more, with the games I've played in Wild, it's basically more of kind of a strategy of, can you kill them before they kill you? It's not really about, okay, I have to control the board and then do this, or I have to trade and then I have to do this, or go face and do this, what have you, as maybe you would with some other decks. So, 2 Illuminators really haven't, they're good to have. Of course, healing is never a bad thing. I so seldomly ever play them. People freak out more with the 1/1s. So they're not really paying attention to, their priority is not to go face in most cases. However, it is good to have just for a little bit of health. You have secrets, you can get secrets out very easily. Illuminator only costs 3 mana, so especially like towards late game, you can throw it out. You can usually get healed maybe once or twice with this before your opponent, if they have the means, will kill it. And then I threw in 1 Avian Watcher, just because looking at it, I wasn't sure kind of what I needed, and I wanted to kind of round out the deck with something, and I thought, well, this synergizes with the secrets, and it's a taunt. It's the only taunt I have, and again, really don't need it. If you can flood the board, your opponent usually will try to take out as much as they can, which leaves them in a really weak spot. Their minions are damaged, or they've traded. You actually end up kind of burning your opponent. Now, I have played this a few times just to kind of help protect my board, keep my recruits behind a taunt, what have you. But you really don't need it. So the Mad Scientist or the Avian Watcher, you could probably trade out for something else. I'm just not really sure what else you would trade it out for. Exactly. 1 Stands Against Darkness. It's kind of high cost for what it does. I feel like I've always You know, when we weren't able to play Muster for Battle in Standard, it was kind of a nice replacement, so to speak, for it. Otherwise, though, to have 2, I mean, that's going to be at the very least half your mana if you're at 10, or pretty much your entire turn, and unless you've set up with a secret of some kind for something, they can be killed so easily and you've wasted a turn, essentially. So, 1 Vine Cleaver. I've always thought this was kind of like one... Always thought it was a little overcost for what it does. Granted, it summons you 2 1/1 recruits. I think it would be better as a 6 cost. Again, it's just kind of expensive for what it does. And in this deck, I did make a recruit deck for, I believe it was Standard. And this was a vital piece to it because it summoned 2 1/1 recruits. In this deck, not so much. By the time I'm at turn 7, if we even get to turn 7, I've either won or lost. I think I've used this once for lethal to go face. Outside of that, I couldn't really justify putting 2 in. So, a lot of the work is done by the lower cost cards. 1 Ragnaros. Again, just because I didn't know healing wise, it is an 8/8 that can attack, unlike the neutral version of this card, and it does heal for 8. Now, the only bad thing is if you flood the board and they somehow end up damaging like a bunch of your recruits, this will heal your recruits instead of you. It is still kind of a random percentage chance of what it will heal. So, and then Tyrian Forging, because how can you have a self-respecting Paladin deck without Tyrian Forging? So, admittedly, again, have rarely ever used this. Really haven't used any of the higher cost cards. I've probably played Justicar. It's probably the most expensive card I have routinely played. And that is for 2 reasons. 1, to get the upgraded hero power, and 2, to throw something big on the board to get them to waste their removal. I don't ever play Justicar with the intent of thinking I'm going to keep her. Not as a 6/3. And I think that's kind of the way most people play this card. So, yeah, I think we managed to go over pretty much everything. So, yeah. Let's play some games and see what happens. So, when everything works the way it's supposed to, you can have some really quick games with this. And the fact that Never Surrender triggers first before your opponent, before their spell activates, is so nice. Some cards in the game don't work that way. It's kind of one of those wonky things about the game.
Burns with holy fire.
Okay, well this isn't great. We're going to send him back. I'm going to send that back. I'm going to send her back. We'll keep the hydrologist. And we don't get much of a better hand. Okay, that's okay. That's okay. Yeah, we'll go ahead and play Avenge just to get it on the board. It won't trigger if there's only 1 minion, so we're fine. Makes our opponent kind of think about things a little more. Oh, if this is one of those legendary weapon rogues. I have a notion to take Stampeding, get away Kodo, and get the Hydrologist back. Try for something better. On the other hand, if she did draw her legendary weapon, Eye for an Eye could be interesting. Yeah, we'll take this, just on the off chance I have to play like Illuminator or something. Kind of bounces it back. Eye for an Eye, it's better late game. I don't know what she has, so I'm not going to make a prediction for late game when we've only just begun. So. I could kill that and play Illuminator. That would heal me back up. Kind of wanted the Hydrologist back, though.
Options.
Indeed. Yeah, let's do that. Let's do this.
Embrace the light.
Let's coin this out. Not a great card to play early game. This is not the ideal way this deck is supposed to work. Ah, okay. Equally as bad. Because of the life. With auto defense matrix, I've had people waste their weapon charges trying to attack my little recruits. It's quite hilarious. Okay, Hidden Wisdom. That's pretty good, especially when you need draw. So, and I think we'll do that. Just kind of waste the charge. I almost crafted this, but it was an epic, and it requires your opponent to play 3 cards. And I know with I think it's Rat Trap, the Hunter Secret, it's the same thing. Okay, now we're getting a little more into how things should work.
Burn.
Do I want to go face with the Hydrologist? I think I do. Let's get 4 now. Now we do have to be careful because they do have Fan of Knives and different things. It could be quite bad for our board.
There once was a man from Gilneas.
So, as I was saying, with the Hunter Secret, your opponent needs to play 3 cards as well, and I've had games where it got triggered like early game and you end up with like a 6/6 rat on the board, and ooh, she burned her sprint. And I've had games where it never got triggered at all. So, okay. Did it kill me? No. No. Close, but no. Cool. Okay. So, I would like to heal again.
Embrace the light.
And does she have another Vanish though? Because I kind of want to flood the board. But yeah.
Reporting for duty.
I could play this and get 2 for 1, but I think we hold off.
Reporting for duty.
Let's do this. Let's heal back up to like 29. Yeah, okay. I really need a quartermaster. That would be fantastic at this point.
Ha, this guy's toast.
There's the Avenge, going 1-1. Okay, okay. Not great. I think we have a shield up, right? Cool. Now we drew some cards. Okay, now this is starting to look a little more promising. So, okay, there's a lot we can do this turn. We can take out... this does damage. I really don't care if it's hard. We can... play that little guy. And then I'm going to run in all 3 of my guys with this. Now that is horribly inefficient normally. However,
Reporting for duty.
since I don't have a... since we don't
Reporting for duty.
actually have a quartermaster or anything in hand,
Job done.
I don't want him to bounce anything back in his hand. Go back up. Okay. Unfortunate, but is the way of things. See, now we're getting some very big... getting some big scary things on the board now, so... These little trees aren't going to deal with this very well, so... See? Just going to waste a weapon charge. And I don't believe... Does she? No, and she doesn't get healed. I was going to say, I've had this happen before. Okay, now we have a quartermaster. So, let's play this.
Reporting for duty.
And this.
Burn.
Let's take that out, and then let's just go face.
The battle.
Like I said, if all you do is, you know, play control, you're going to lose. So, 6 health, I have 4 in hand. What do you got? She's sprinting for something. She's got 2 mana, so I'm going to say we won.
Well played.
Well played, indeed. Sorry. Indeed. Okay, and that worked as that. The start of the game. It didn't look like it was going. The end of the game is how the deck is supposed to work. That is the kind of games that I end up having 9 times out of 10. So, and I didn't realize, and maybe I should have, I didn't realize that when the auto defense matrix, when the secret activates, if they have a weapon, because a lot of
versus Jaina.
there's a few weapons now that have
You asked
life
for it.
steal.
My blade
They don't get
burns
healed.
with holy fire.
That was kind of a they still take the damage, but they don't get healed, so it works really well. I was kind of like, should I put this in here? It's just so nice to get a shield. I'm gonna wait and coin out muster for battle against a mage, so yeah, I think we wait. I don't particularly care to play this when I know I'm going to have 1/1s on the board, so. I'm really kind of curious what that rogue deck was exactly. There's a lot of like stall decks in Wild I've been running into for whatever reason. Decks that will play that have the mech version of Cthulhu. You have to have your hand and your deck empty. Those decks are really interesting.
The battle.
They're very annoying to play against because
The battle.
generally you end up losing. Or if they have it, I've won and I've never known. Because they're just like nothing but stall decks. You'll get so close, and then they'll just keep drawing and drawing and drawing, and then they'll even burn cards and take damage. And then eventually they'll play the mech version of Cthulhu. I can't remember what the name of it is off the top of my head, and sadly you lose. So now's probably...
Mount up.
Do I want to play... Yeah, because the hero power is not going to trigger the shield. So we'll play Noble Sacrifice.
The battle.
We'll sacrifice a couple of our...
The battle.
There is a version of a like a spell mage, and the only thing they have are spell power, sorcerer's apprentice, and just a bunch of spells, and that is it. And it's the most annoying thing. I don't think this is it because they typically don't run, but they do run that card. Okay, so probably that. Okay, I'd rather lose this if that's a counter spell. It is. Very good. So let's actually play this and try to get us the score back.
Burn.
We're actually doing really good against a mage. So we've got 3 cards out, Secret out. We have things we can do. It's a shame I have a Quartermaster and I don't have more recruits on the board.
Free of that blasted tower.
And I was kind of surprised. You don't see this card more often. It's a weird card in the effect. It sounds really good, but it's a weird card in the effect, and I don't like this at all. This is bringing back bad memories of games I've already played. Okay, so 1 mana short. This.
Reporting for duty.
Embrace the light.
Show me.
I can't kill that. I could. No, I'll wait. I can play
The battle.
the Vine Cleaver next turn. Unless she plays something really... But I've got Noble Sacrifice, I've got Never Surrender, I've got Avenge, haha. Now, that will still kill 2, but... And you've used all your mana.
Behold.
I'm so sorry. Ah! Actually, no, that did. Okay.
Burn.
Just fine. 3 cards in hand.
Reporting for duty.
About half his health. This is fine. This is perfectly fine. She's not gonna waste a flame strike on this. So. What do we still have left? Just Noble Sacrifice. Okay. that's bye-bye. I want to know. Okay. I would rather lose the Avenge. Okay.
Reporting for duty.
2, 4, 6. So I need to wait because I can only play 7 minions if I want to play that. So I want to play my Quartermaster. So one of the weird things about this deck, you actually have to keep in mind you only have 7 spots. See, Arcane Missiles, if I had a Never Surrenders, everything gets buffed up, nothing dies. I don't know what this mage is, but she is throwing a lot of stuff out. I rarely have encountered whatever this deck is, so
Burn.
let's do 4 damage.
Reporting for duty.
Let's get as many of these things out as
Reporting for
possible.
duty. To arms, men. The battle.
Ah! Well, that is not going to do you any good because you have no recruits. It's just going to be a 2/5, which doesn't kill anything, so...
To arms, men.
You win.
Wow. Indeed. Indeed. Yeah, I played that horribly, but still won. So. I get the impression that I end up playing against decks like that, and I wonder if it's not like the first game they've played, so they're still trying to like figure out, like tweak it and figure things out. Because that was just weird.
Liadrin versus Anduin.
The light shall bring victory.
My blade burns with holy fire.
There is also a I can't think of the name now. A mage deck that is all...
Job's done.
Basically, it's like a stall deck. It's all spells, and then it has Sorcerer's Apprentice. I've seen a couple different ways of either reducing the cost or copying Sorcerer's Apprentice so that you can play the Legendary, play a spell, your fireballs are free, and then you just keep going after your opponent.
Should I?
And yeah, I think we'll take this. We haven't been drawing those in the last few games, so. Normally, the games I've played up until this point, normally my recruits don't die. They just keep getting buffed up more and more to the point that my opponent ends up conceding. So now let's set up for this. That makes more sense.
Reporting for duty.
At first I was going to play Noble Sacrifice to play Sun River Spy, and I was like, wait, why would I? I can play this before he's within Holy Nova range.
Welcome to the exhibit.
And I have a notion to play this and kill that to keep the board clear. Copy a spell in your opponent's hand. Okay. Well, a lot of mine end up working with recruits, so good luck with that. Yeah, let's play that. I will replace that.
The battle. The battle! The battle!
The one thing that seems to be kind of seems to annoy me a little bit is that with the all the Paladin spells costing 1, you end up with like 1 mana left over you can't do anything with. See, look at that. I mean, that is just brilliant. I mean, you want to keep whacking away at it, I mean, be my guest, but these can't attack right away, dude. You realize that, right? Yeah, I don't think you realize that. That may have been a bit of a misplay. That's why I said it's it's almost overpowered. It's just brilliant. Okay, so let's play. Seems good now.
Got something to hide?
The battle! Reporting for duty. The battle!
No, what am I doing? We should just go face. And then I'm gonna go face with this because I want to play muster for battle. And the weapon will replace that. So before it gets destroyed and I can't attack, we'll just go face. It's this at this point it's probably fine. He's not gonna. Okay, I should have probably killed him. That actually ended up working quite well for him. Wow. I see what he's doing. Well, this just got a whole lot more interesting.
Get down!
Now, did he anticipate that, or was that just kind of a fluke? And he does trade poorly, so I'm fine with that. That's why I said I had a feeling something was coming, so I said I want to get ready for. Ooh. No. Okay. We'll play this.
Reporting for duty.
And then we'll play this.
The battle.
That's perfectly grisly right there. That's why I said most of my cards work with recruits, so yours don't. My synergy keeps working. If he has a Holy Nova, he's not going to kill anything this turn. I mean, he can go. He can Holy Nova and then run the weapon into something, but. Okay. And there we go. Cool. Well played indeed. Rank 18. I'm telling you, this deck is not bad, despite the fact that I'm playing dreadfully. So, there you go, folks. That is my recruitment deck. Not a bad little deck, I have to say. I've been having a lot of fun with it. And this is what I think is nice about Wild, is you have these deck ideas that you do, and you kind of play them for a while. You kind of play, kind of through the meta, and then new cards come out and you do other things, and new themes, new gimmicks come to be, and as there are more cards added, more ideas kind of get flushed out that maybe there weren't enough cards for before. But it's kind of nice to go back and kind of remake, so to speak, as it were, some of the older deck ideas, I'll say, in kind of a slightly different way with different cards, and you kind of get to see how different things work. So yeah, so there you go, folks. Hope you enjoyed that, and thank you for watching.